righty.
Got your back, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, I appreciate it.
That's just all those.
Solar.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our June zoning board meeting. As we begin, we have a few decisions to go through. Our first decision tonight is the Quantic Beach Club, Inc., 49 Dune Road. That was, a lot of work went into that decision. Thank you for that. We have a decision to grant that variance. So I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and accept that decision as it's written.
Second.
Second by Jim, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alrighty. Our next one is Heidi Wendorf, 15 Bay Road. Somebody here for that? Nobody here for that. Okay, well, the board has a decision to go to approve that request for variance. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept that decision as written. I have a
Second.
second by Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, they're both unanimous, Megan. And the last one is the Eric Miller Irrevocable Trust on 13 Stacy Drive. The board has a decision to approve that variance, so I'd like to make a motion that we accept that decision as written. Second by John, all in favor?
Nay.
Say again?
Nay.
John is the nay?
Aye.
And
No.
Huh?
He's the nay.
Nay.
Joe's the nay.
Joe's a nay.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's a 4-1, okay, on that? Joe.
Thank you.
Joe, nay, Joe. I'm getting it.
John.
Okay. With our holdovers tonight, we have two cases that are in the Pond Point District, okay? Number 4 on our agenda, and the next one is number 7 on our agenda. One of our board members, Stan, has to recuse himself from those hearings, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna take number 4, and then we're gonna skip to number 7, and then we'll get our board back intact. Okay, so Dan will be stepping down. And now we go into the holdovers, Casey and Megan Shanley, 86 Harbor Road. The applicant seeks a lot of variances, and I know this has been reworked, and maybe you could just summarize what actually is being asked for, Jim?
Sure, I will get to that, yes. So, as you know, we submitted earlier this week a modified plan, further reducing the project. And as you know, we're seeking to replace a one-story house at 86 Harbor Road. And before we get to the details of what we submitted, my client has very nicely put together kind of an executive summary of everything that we've talked about over the several meetings, and including some zoning variance decisions, but only things, nothing new, just summarizing everything that we've talked about. And I'm not going to read it, so, but we just do want to make it of record. So I brought 2 copies. What I will do is give one to the chairman and one to Megan, and then tomorrow I will send an email to Megan with a digital copy so that she can share it with you. And to the extent that it's pertinent to what we're talking about tonight, I have some summaries of that we can discuss in detail, if that's all right with the chairman.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm not going to really refer to them directly, but you're certainly free to do it as you wish. So as indicated, we're here in this continuing hearing. We have further reduced, well, let's go at it this way. As you may recall, when we first started, we were looking for 5 separate variances. And now we have reduced those to 2, and our discussions over the last couple of meetings have been an attempt to reduce, although we feel we couldn't eliminate, but to at least reduce in scale the variances that we were looking for. So if you, that's summarized in this chart here. And if you, fair enough? Do you need more?
Look, I'll let you.
I have more here. So as you can see, when we started out, we were looking for a lot coverage of 37.5, which we've now reduced to 29.3 in our proposal. But that's one of the variances we still need because 20% is required. We were originally looking for a building parking lot area of 47.6, 43.2, which we reduced previously down to, we've reduced now down to 35.6, which no longer requires a variance. The third variance we were looking for was an accessory structure setback. We were originally looking for 1925 when 20 is required, and now as proposed, we're up to 20, so we eliminated that variance as well. We were looking for rear yard relief of 20.5 when 25 was required. We're now at 25, so we eliminated that variance. And then the last one is the habitable floor area. We were originally looking for 34% when 20 is allowed, and now we have reduced that down to 29.3%. So the two variances that we are looking for now are the building lot area coverage of 29.3% and the habitable floor area variance of 29.3%. And just as an aside, that 29.3 translates to a habitable floor area of a little over 2,300 square feet, which is under the 2,500 square foot cap that's in the code. But we do exceed the 20%, so we are looking for that variance. So as indicated, when we started this process, we were looking for 5. We now reduced those to 2, and we've reduced the absolute value of those for about as far as we think that we can get. The other way to look at this is we're asking for something. What are we giving up? Okay, well, right now we have a house that there are 8 or 9 areas in which we exceed the code requirements with the existing home. And so we're coming into compliance with 7 out of those 9. So there's some substantial, we believe, some substantial give back on our part relative to this matter. But in any event, what that results in is, well, before we get to that, I would like to ask Craig if he could explain for a few minutes how we changed the project, how we made it smaller, what we gave up in order to get to where we are tonight.
Hi, everyone. Craig Orm here on behalf of the Shanleys. So thank you for your patience in allowing us to go through a few iterations to where we are today. The main difference from the last plan to the current one, there's certain requirements we had to maintain, some bedrooms, things just for the Shanleys for what their family requirements are. But we really took a hard look at all the spaces, tightening them up wherever we could. Some of the open space, there was a 2-story living room. We removed that, which also, that's some overall volume as well as not just square footage. But also then in doing so, we could eliminate some hallways in addition to tightening things up, really just to get us down to, the couple hundred square feet to where we are. And, so there's, so that was really the main floor area, but we're down to some very modest size rooms, some 10-foot by 10-foot bedrooms for some of the secondary bedrooms. I really don't think there's anything extravagant about what we're asking for in terms of room sizes or habitable area, really just sort of the minimum for a family with 4 children. Then on the exterior, we did also reduce some decks, some stairs, some porches, just to, once again, just tighten everything and just try and make everything as tight as we could to, as small as we could to obviously hopefully meet all the Shanley's needs, but also take into consideration everything the board has stated so far. So I think that's really the main things, and happy to answer any other questions that the
Well, I
board
have
may
some thoughts for you, but
Sure.
I want to let you go through with your
Okay.
presentation, and maybe it's for Jim.
Okay.
So continuing on, one thing I wanted to note is if you look at the site plan that forms the first page of Craig's submission, you'll see that from a purely dimensional point of view, the proposed house, unlike the current house, fits within all of the side yard, front yard, and rear yard setbacks. And also, we meet the height requirement as well. So as far as view shed impacts on the community can't expect anything more than this, because we're not exceeding any of the dimensions that would in any way impact the community as far as any views that they may think that they are or were entitled to. And in fact, in a couple of instances, we are retreating from the existing setbacks from the neighbors. But in any event, as we discussed, the 2 variances that are left in this process are the building lot area of 29.3 versus 20, which is, as I indicated before, a substantial reduction, I think, from the existing 36.7. So the 36.7 is what we have now, and we're reducing it substantially down to the 29.3. And as I indicated, the house, and another thing to consider is the house itself is only about 15%, I think, of that overall building lot area coverage. But it's something, the house itself doesn't exceed the 20. It's the house with the deck that ends up exceeding the 20. And then, of course, we have the habitable space that we've been talking about. And again, this is a further reduction. One of the comments last time when we were talking about the fact, I understand there's a 20% requirement here, but we were in the discussion about the 2,500 cap that also exists in the code. There were some comments, I think, perhaps from the audience about, well, we were only a couple of feet below that cap even, and now we've reduced it so that we're a couple of hundred feet almost below that 2,500 cap. So to the extent that 2,500 means anything in this particular area, we're significantly below that. Going quickly through the balancing test, first the character of the neighborhood, particularly as it pertains to the habitable space. We've shown this a number of times in a table form, but I thought it might be helpful to share it in a more visual form. And what I've done is gone through a number of homes in the general vicinity of our home. And this is not to say that this is the average or we're at the average or anything like that, but that just to demonstrate that our home is really not out of keeping with the number of the homes that already exist in the vicinity of our home. And in particular, there's a house right next door at 80 Harbor Road that has a habitable space of over 40%. We've now reduced ours down to 29.3%, and you can see the ones that I picked out, they range anywhere from 23% up to 42%. So we're not out of keeping, at least in that form of analysis, as to the kinds of homes that are in place in this neighborhood. As far as alternatives, as Craig described, he and the client really sharpened the pencil and looked at their needs vis-a-vis the comments that this board has made, and that's how we came to the reduction that we had. The substantial nature, I think it has to be, as we've talked about, it has to be considered in the context of this application in this neighborhood. And the overall thing that we're supposed to be doing is balancing impacts and benefits here. And, you know, based on the 7 or 8 givebacks that that this project contains relative to front yard, side yard, rear yard setback, all of which are exceeded now, and in addition, the flood elevation, which is below, and this house will, of course, be FEMA compliant when all is said and done. In that context, I don't believe that the relief that we're looking for now, it could be considered substantial. The fourth factor is the environmental. This is really where the benefit to the community comes in this project, as opposed to the benefit to my client. The FEMA compliance for this house helps the community rating, helps with flood damage protection, things like that, which are, you know, obviously great concerns for the community. We certainly won't increase the flood damage, and I think one more house that doesn't get knocked over in a storm increases the protection. The house, of course, will need one of these brand new IA septic systems, which is much more environmentally sound than the septic system that exists now that probably gets cleaned out every time there's a high tide, and into the bay it goes. And we talked about the view shed before. We're not exceeding any of the dimensional setbacks, so we can't really impact the view shed any more than neighbors would be entitled to have that limit. And again, the self-created, you know, we've talked always about the fact that all by itself, that's not determinative. Arguably, our circumstances are created by the regulation, not necessarily by our own doing, but I could understand that there might be a different perspective on that particular one. But in any event, I don't think either way that carries the day. So, in summary, we're here to balance the benefit to the neighborhood versus the detriment to the neighborhood versus the benefit to the applicant. The applicant, by undertaking this project, certainly benefits, but the community benefits as well. And I guess it's your job, obviously it's your job, to determine which one outweighs the other. As we talked about a little bit, merely raising the home creates some of these benefits to the community, but doesn't really create any of the benefit to the applicant. So the applicant's motivation here is, the benefit here to the applicant is he's getting a new home, a new modern home, at the same time as the community is getting the benefits that I have already outlined. So that's
it in a nutshell for you.
That's it in a nutshell,
Okay, so I
yes.
got a few things for you.
sure.
Number one, with respect to the growing family and the family needs, that's not something that we consider, okay, with the zoning. Okay, that's not a consideration for us. If that's really the case, I would suggest, as I've stated before, that the applicant needs to look in a different area and not build in Pond Point, okay? That's number one. The next big thing is, and I see how you reduce these, you're gonna be taking down a house and starting with a clean slate. And your lot, right now, by my calculations, is 31% larger than the 6,000 feet that's required, that these zoning regulations are based on. So with that size lot, I think we can make an argument that you shouldn't get any relief, because you already have 31% more than other people. So how do you address that?
Well, I think that falls out of the balancing test. I think, what benefit are we getting in that scenario? In that scenario, we're probably not building anything. Or it's,
Certainly build a compliant house on that lot. That lot is 78,
True.
over 7,800 feet, where Pond
ahead.
Point
Right.
requires 6,000.
Right.
And the other thing, getting into habitable space, that 20% and 2,500 square feet, that's based on the 6,000 square feet for the lot. So, you know, that throws it off again.
I mean, the one thing too, I think, have to keep in mind also, when you look at where we are right now with lot coverage, we could just lift the house for FEMA. We are not eliminating any of the variances, that, or sorry, not variances, any of the nonconformities. We're keeping lot coverage, we're keeping our setbacks. We can elevate the house for FEMA, to our maximum height, you know, so we could possibly even park underneath it. So I think in the big picture, you know, is that something that the clients want to do? No, but also at the same point, it is something that is feasible, and could do. And honestly, if they weren't going to get certain variances to do a two-story house, which just by nature of a two-story house, you have more staircases, you have more hallways. It does require typically larger square foot areas just in going 2 stories. You know, there really isn't any, if there isn't anything that would be beneficial to the clients to do a 2-story house and reduce those nonconformities if there wasn't some give back with everything.
Aren't you raising the deck also?
We would be raising the deck and the house.
So we just did a decision on 15 Bay, I think, where 15 Bay Road. Their deck is staying down at the, well, that would make a big difference for you, don't you think?
I think that's something we'd have to just address for the, you know, with the clients in terms of just on design. We haven't
Well, we talked
really-
about that before, but it seems like obviously the client isn't interested in that.
I mean, that would be something, I mean, I guess the thing is if they're gonna lose interior square footage, right now they have a lot more exterior square footage with the sizing of the deck and everything also. So I think it's sort of, they're giving up some of the square footage of the deck and converting it to some living space. But it's still something where they're giving up usable space on the lot. So I guess that's.
And the bulk of the conversation has been about the habitable space.
And the lot coverage, Jim.
Yeah, yes, but I agree.
You know, I'm
but-
big on that. You know, I always have.
Yes, but, you know, we might consider doing something with the deck, but I think we've probably reached the limit on reducing the habitable space that we're proposing.
The habitable space is, we're looking for almost 10% above, 9.5%, 9.3%
Right.
above. And you already have a lot that's 31% bigger than the Pond Point.
So are you saying we should get 31% bigger? Is that?
No, I'm not saying that.
Sorry.
But I'm saying you already have a bigger lot and you could certainly conform to it without, and I know you're taking down and giving back, but the reality of it is you're gonna take the house down and have a vacant lot and build a big house.
Well, not until we get the variances we need to do
Well,
it.
of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Uh,
This is where we sit.
Yes, no, I understand.
understood.
Understand,
Okay.
but at the end of the day, you're supposed to be balancing benefit and detriment.
Yes.
And there's a lot of great benefit going to the community, a lot of great benefit going to my client. And I think to decide that we're going to battle about the habitable space, which in my, the habitable space is a great benefit to us because that makes the house more livable. I question the impact of the habitable space limit on the neighborhood at large when we're proposing a house that meets the setbacks, that meets the height requirement, and perhaps even at some point meets the building lot coverage requirement, but,
Not meeting the building lot
yeah,
coverage
but,
requirement.
but
So we're not even talking about that.
But of all the things that we could be asking to get relief for, I think that the habitable space is the least impactful. Because we could design, and perhaps not useful, but we could certainly design a house that reached the limits of the setbacks, or ask for relief beyond the level of the setbacks. And be much more impactful on the neighborhood than what we're proposing now, which is in complete compliance with front, rear, side, total side, and height. So I'm having trouble grasping the concept that the habitable space is really the important thing here.
Well,
When
why-
we're giving back all these other,
Why
what
would
I
you-
think are much more impactful.
Why would you have trouble with that when you've been here for 4 meetings? And that's one of the things we've been talking about on and on and on and on again.
Well, I understand what you
yet-
think.
and
I
yet-
just having trouble understanding that that's the most important.
But this is
Thing-
the fifth meeting, and you're surprised.
Well, I'm not surprised that we're still talking about it. I just am having trouble understanding why that particular feature is such a big deal. Because I think it's the least impactful thing that we're asking to do.
Well, that's, it, you have every right to think that, but,
Oh, thank you.
we have numbers, to work with here, with the code.
Right, right.
And even though I may think, okay, well, that number's too low, it's too high, I don't have that option.
Well, I think you do, because you have to deal with the reality of what's there. And there's a house that's right next door to us that's 40%. We're not asking for 40%, we're asking for 29.3% or whatever it is we're asking. There's a house down the street that's 42%
There are,
habitable
Jim,
space.
there are 100 homes in that community.
Yeah.
100. And to just take a small sampling of a few here and there, it doesn't represent the community. This isn't, the R1, the R2 zone where, it takes up acres and acres and acres.
Right.
This
But
is-
it is a measure of impact of what we're proposing.
What's the
And
measure of impact?
the fact that there are so many houses in proximity to us that exceed the 20% and exceed the percentage that we're looking for indicates that what we're asking for is not going to be as impactful as if everybody adjacent to us was at 20% and we wanted 40%. That would be much more impactful on the neighborhood than what we're asking to do.
Just to add to that, and I think for what Jim was saying, it is something that it is a unique area, and I think we all recognize that, but also through part of the zoning, it is broken down into set percentages and set based on property sizes, and for the variances that have been granted in the past, they're percentage based. Everything in the area is percentage based, so if a lot was half the size and and they're asking for 30% or whatever the number is, I mean, it's all relative. So if we're twice the lot in theory and it's, and looking for the same percentage, the code for that area is written utilizing percentages. And I really don't see how you can differentiate based on lot size if there's others that are granted within those percentages.
Well, you have to respect the fact, Craig, that we do not agree with you at all.
Understood. I can understand
Okay.
that.
No,
I just,
because I don't think, when you have a house like that and you have a lot that's a certain size and they want, a 10%, and you want a 10% with a lot that's 30% bigger to begin with, that's a much bigger grant. We can't go strictly by percentages. I just don't agree
Well, I
with
think
that.
that's why you
And
go
this
by
is a
percentages to
this is a
normalize lot size.
I'm sorry?
I think that's why you go with percentages, to normalize the lot size. And so the only way we can compare apples to apples is this house has 40% habitable space, this house has 20%.
When
habitable
I
space.
looked at this, and I even sent an email to the board members thinking about this, when we talk about the lots and granting percentages, when we look at something that's, instead of 6,000 square feet, the lot is only 5,000. Well, that's a big difference, right? So now maybe we could base the relief based on that. If we apply that formula to yours, so if we have a lot that's 6,000 feet and 5,400, that's 10%. Right? 5,400 is 10% less than what's allowed. So maybe we start with that and start with a 22% lot coverage as a base to be fair. But that would torpedo your argument. So you talk about the balancing test. There's your balancing test, and I don't.
Well, but that's not the only factor
No, it's
that
not
you're
the only
balancing.
factor. There's the 5
And-
factors, but if this
yeah.
is one substantial.
Well,
variance.
this is the least impactful thing that we could have asked for, of all the
Oh, I
things
don't
we asked
agree
for.
with that, Jim. You could have asked for something that conforms, that
No,
you don't
that's
need
true.
anything.
Well, then we wouldn't be asking you.
That's true.
We wouldn't be here.
I'm not gonna say it's
Okay.
not insignificant, but at the same point, I do feel strongly that giving back and eliminating the number of nonconformities that we are doing certainly should weigh heavily towards one that we're.
And it is, and we had the codes in place to make the new construction conform,
Understood.
okay? So, and there's your balancing test, and you're right, and
Well, no, the
That's why we're
balancing
here.
test has to do with whether you will give relief from the zoning code, not that the zoning code is trying to compel compliance.
well, the zoning code is compelling it.
Well, the
compliance,
zoning
and
code
we have to
is the
decide
zoning
whether to
code,
give
and
relief.
you're here to decide whether the benefit to, the detriment to the community and the benefit to the applicant are such that you should or shouldn't vary the requirement. And, you know, I understand, I clearly understand that you have always taken the position that if you're tearing the house down, it's a vacant lot. But in the context of the character of the community, that's not correct, because there is a house there now. And there is a house there with a number of encroachments. And we are, I believe, entitled to get the benefit of giving those back as part of the balancing test in this project. This is not a vacant lot. It'll be a vacant lot for a couple of months at some point in the future if the Shanleys decide to build whatever they're deciding to build. But there is a benefit to the community that is being derived from what we are proposing that goes well beyond what the community would benefit from if this were in fact just a vacant lot.
Okay, I think point's been made. Board members, any other comment? Joe?
No, I just like to, you know,
Okay.
say that, we've been trying to give you direction, you know, for 4 meetings. And the needle is just, you know, moved very, very slightly. So, you know, you've been before the board, you know, for ages. And, you know, Craig, you know, same thing.
I guess we're just having a little difficulty reading the tea leaves, but.
No, come on, you know, that's, you know, it's not that difficult, you know, to read us. And, it just hasn't moved that much. You know, and then we're at our 5th meeting, and, yes, you know, there are a lot of variances that have been taken care of and no longer. But the biggest ones, lot coverage and habitable space in that area, you know, are still there, and they're still substantial.
You want to defer another day?
I don't have anything else.
No,
We did have some letters, you know.
I saw them both,
You saw the
Yes.
letters from
yes,
neighbors. I mean, I think it was just restating,
yes.
summarizing things that have been brought before.
And I believe neither of them had seen the new plan before they made their comments, but,
Okay.
and they were.
Does anybody?
for the most part conclusory. Is that the word I'm trying to think of? With no facts to support. You know, clearly a neighbor didn't want this to happen, so that's what they said.
So, can I see if anybody else has a
Sure.
comment, and then you could come back, of
Yes,
course?
thank you.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say on this application that we haven't heard before?
You were here 25 years ago when I first came before this board and tried to get a country club built.
You know what? I was here 25 years ago.
I know you were. My name is Jerry Shanley. My son is Casey Shanley. My other son is Joseph Shanley. 139 Point Road, building a brand-new house. And you gave him a 29.3% variance to build that house, which got him to about 1,800 square feet. So that's new construction. That was where you did not hold it to the 20% lot coverage, inhabitable space variance. And I think that I've got enough sibling rivalry in my family without you adding to it by denying this application. So I urge you to, to reconsider.
We haven't made a decision yet.
All right, well, it sounds like you have, but if you haven't made a decision, then, I hope you consider this one favorably. Back in, I'm probably one of the reasons that the 1983 ordinance was passed, having a group house of about 10 people in 1970, close by to my friend Jack Conley, who's been there since he was 3 years old. My sons have both spent a lot of money buying homes there that they plan to use the community for a long time. It's a kid community. It's a wonderful community. I spent probably the last 4 years dealing with Maria and recently with Ralph, the mayors, to get a new bulkhead, which was installed on Pond Point. We're still working with them to try to create some kind of mitigation for the flooding that goes on, which is substantial, as my son's recent submission will show you the pictures that have occurred there in the recent past. There's some basic things that can be done to alleviate that flooding, and I think that houses becoming FEMA compliant with new septic systems, plus or minus, a couple hundred square feet of living space, should be considered and should be considered favorably. I will add that my son has got 3 teenage granddaughters, and if you made him put all 3 of those girls in the same bedroom, you could be accessory to crimes. Anyway, I appreciate your time, and I hope you look upon this favorably.
Thank you.
Mr. Shanley, you mentioned your son has a house. Is that the one at 139 Point Road?
It is.
And that was before us within the last 12, 18
It
months.
has been. And you granted a favorable variance, and then he's holding it over his brother.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else? No? Jim?
I think, since my clients are not here right now to directly consult, I might ask you to indulge us one more month. I may be reporting back to you that we just want the hearing closed next month and to please render a decision, but we'll take one last, we'll get a number 1 pencil instead of a number 2 pencil and see if we can.
That may go a long way.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right,
So if you could just
All
put
right,
it over,
well-
that would be wonderful.
we'll honor that request. I think we'll make a motion to hold this over for all purposes.
Second.
Second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty. We're going to number 7 now, okay? So 7 is Paradise WHB LLC, 414 Dune Road. Applicant seeks variances from 19710C1 to reconstruct a dwelling and accessory deck with proposed building lot coverage of 21.5% in a lot area where the maximum presented is 20%. 19710D for proposed principal rear yard setback of 17 feet where the minimum is 25. 19734A5 for proposed biddable floor area of 29.6 of the lot area where the maximum is 20%. And from 19735C for a proposed accessory deck setbacks of 5 and 14 feet where the minimum is required is 20.
Good evening. Diane Harold for Dan and Doreen Martinson, the owners of the property. If you remember last month, we discussed habitable space and lot coverage. I'm not going to dwell on it anymore. We discussed it at our last meeting. Now I'm interested in talking to you about comments that were made by the board at last time. They did ask us to reduce our our habitable space, which we did. We reviewed the project. We looked at the plans again. We reduced a little bit by taking off the deck, so we're now down to 28.9%. From my hearing of most of these applications, that seems to be within the realm now because of people requiring a little bit larger space. I'm hoping that sometime the board could probably look at these calculations in the future and maybe come up with something that's a little bit easier for us to handle. When I did the house next door, we didn't have the restrictions then. The code changed, and I guess when things start happening, that's when the code has to be changed. So this month, I would like to review the floor plans that we submitted, because the floor plans are for a house that's 2 stories, 26 by 30 feet, on an undersized lot. We've discussed that last month. So these dimensions make it difficult 30 feet makes it difficult to build bedrooms and bathrooms. If you look at the floor plan that we submitted, you'll see that the bedrooms end up about 10 by 10.6, small closets. The main bedroom is 13 by 13.4 with a 7/8 bathroom. These are dimensions that I'm seeing in some of the applications that are coming into you. So we're looking more at bedroom sizes. The sanitary system is approved for 3 bedrooms, so of course we'd like to take advantage of that space. So we feel that this scale, the 26 by 30, is probably the best solution for our property. We did try cutting it back a little bit. The percentage that brought it down wasn't worth making the rooms smaller. So we'd like to stay with this proposed habitable space of the 28.9.
And what's the size of the house? How many square feet is the house?
Oh,
780.
780 on each floor, thank you.
What's that?
780 each level.
Each floor.
780 each level.
I mean, we're way under 1,000 square feet.
15,
A 2,000 square foot house is a normal house. So,
1,560.
you know, so it's a little bit different. To my knowledge, I don't think any of the neighbors have voiced a denial or wanted to opposition on our project. The neighbors next door actually wrote a letter of support. So in looking at the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, the office, the bedrooms, it's a decent house for this area and for the size of that property. So we feel that we would like to maintain keeping with that percentage. And the house, its design is cottage. It's fitting in the area that the existing house is there. You've probably seen the house. The one difficulty we do have that I discussed last time was that we have a common driveway, sanitary system, and this crazy ramp that I gotta get everybody up to for the 2 houses. So that made it a little bit more complicated for this project. And I think, I would appreciate, let me say, that the board might take that into a little bit of consideration also, because we do have that issue with the driveways and the sanitary
You
system.
want to explain that a little bit more, how that affects you?
Well, I told you last time,
Me again.
I spoke to Paul, and he came and he said, Diane, you gotta come in here and tell me what you're gonna do. And I said, I'll make it work. So he knew that I had to put a sanitary system on both these lots, the neighbor and the one we're discussing. I had to have, I think, like 48 feet or something like that, I forget the number, for the sanitary system. So at the end of the driveway, I had to peel off and do a ramp to get up to the height that I needed for the sanitary system. So that made it even more complicated. When I gave it to Paul, he looked at it and he said it was fine. So we got to build it. I think the board has seen it. They can see the complications that are involved. Backing in and out of that area is complicated. So we're trying to do a house that's a good size, but we're running into these constraints. You remember? So do you have any other questions for me?
You've trimmed this down as much as you can, is what you're saying, right?
I can actually, if the board wants me to email you the smaller size, I actually, if you want to give me a break till the next meeting, I actually have a drawing for it in my file right here, if you want to review that. I don't know how you want to handle it. It was.
Well, you know, as a board,
Excuse me?
we're obligated to grant the minimum variance
I
necessary
understand.
to grant. So that was my question to you.
It's not going to help. You know, it's still pretty tight. Like I said, if you want to pull up somebody else and then I'll come back and tell you what the sizes are, I could do that.
I think we got it down to 28 or something like that, but that was by chopping 2 feet off of each bedroom.
That's right, we narrowed it down.
And then you couldn't fit,
I actually took like 2 feet off of the whole perimeter and
but it
reduced
was
it.
still over by.
But it didn't
26
get me
Too
down
much,
to
huh?
where I had to be. I mean, the house is the house, the property is what it is. so I didn't have an option. As I said, if the board wants to get it down, but it's not gonna be something that's gonna make you happy. And it's gonna make the client unhappy, because when you go from a 10'6" bedroom and it's down to 8 feet, it's not gonna work. I mean, everybody now wants a queen-size bed. So I'm looking at a lot of these applications. We're coming in the previous application with Jim. He was talking about 10'6" bedrooms too, and he had a big house. I mean, it's, personally, I think that's the standard size, minimum standard size. So that's what we're asking for, is to have the minimum size bedrooms and spaces, a decent dining room, a decent bedrooms, nice bathrooms. We used to do the 5 by 8, you know, we're only a little bit bigger right now with this house. So a lot of this has been pared down.
Let me ask you a question, Diane.
Sure.
The original proposal from 2024, when it was a single-story house,
Yes.
right? That was 1,365 square feet. And in your argument, you know, for, you know, on that application, you said, you know, we can do this, we need, you know, lot coverage, and we need some habitable space, you know, variance, and some other variances, you know, around the property. Or we can build a 2-story house, same square footage. You know, that was in, you know, in your argument.
It's not the same square footage. If
well-
1-story to 2-story is like double the square footage.
I can show you, I can
Yeah.
show you what you wrote up. You said we
Oh.
can either do it in a single story, or we could do a 2-story with 1,300 square.
Well,
It's-
at the advice of my clients, they have decided that the 2-story is what they would like to have. They're,
That's fine.
You know,
That's
so-
fine, I'm just,
No, I understand
you
what
know,
you're saying.
saying what, you know,
Yeah.
you know.
You know what? We put an application in before, we withdrew it, now we're back with this application, and this is what we feel it would work best on that property.
Right, well, the previous one, like I said, was 1,365 square feet, you know, with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Now, the new one is
Hey,
1,560.
2 bedrooms and 2 baths.
Well, it looks like 3 baths.
Hey, Joe and Diane, could you just use the microphone a little bit
sorry.
better, because for the recording. Joe, you might want to make,
Yeah, it looks like, you know, 3 bedrooms and 3 baths on the new one,
Is it 3 1,
and 1,560 square feet.
yes, because there's a master bath, then a Jack and Jill, and then downstairs we have a bathroom just
It's
for
not a full
people.
bath, it's just a little bath.
Right.
Yeah, but yes,
So I'm just, you know, repeating your argument, and, you know, is it
I-
possible to get it to the 1,365, is my question.
not to make it livable spaces. We tried and it didn't work out, and that's why we're back here again. And they felt that the 2-story would be better use of the property, obviously. If we had just 1 story, I can't even put the 3 bedrooms in there. You know, it's the setbacks that are
Oh, yeah,
involved.
no, I get it, I get
So,
it.
you know, what's the point of building a house if you can't have more than one bedroom and 1 bathroom?
Sure, sure.
So we've taken this into consideration. We've looked at other houses. We've looked at other applications that have been submitted. The previous application was 10 by 6 bedrooms also. That seems to be a comfort zone. Maybe the board should think about that as far as any future decisions they want to make about how they might want to change the regulations, the code.
that's not up to us.
That's not up to
We
you?
don't make the code.
Oh,
We interpret the code. That's going to be your
Sorry.
mayor and trustees that are going
well,
to.
well, we better talk to them.
That's going to alter the code. Yeah, that's,
Oh, I
we
see.
don't
I
do that.
apologize.
You know, what happens is, you know, since this is such a, you know, the lots are so small, and the houses are, you know, are larger percentage-wise, the asks are up to 50% and more. You know, that puts a real, you know, bind on us to give 50% variances, that's all.
Well, your board has seen me here for a
Yeah.
very, very, very long time.
Right,
So I've seen things evolve, I've seen changes. I'm not happy with what's happening in Pond Point. You know, it's a different kind of area now. But there's nothing, you know, if the code's the way it is, you have to work with it, and then you have to ask for variances.
okay.
I really don't have anything else.
You don't have anything for me?
I don't think I have anything else. Any other question for you?
Well, thank you,
John?
that's very gracious
Jimmy?
of you. Thank you for your time.
Comments? Anybody have a comment on this application? No? Okay. All right, Diane, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think if we're done, I think I'll make a motion to close this hearing for decision.
Second.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move right along.
Give our,
Where's our,
take a little break to get, there he is.
there he is. All right.
Did I miss anything?
Welcome back, Carter. All right. All right, good. We're up to number 5. Tamara Bedrosian, 21 Jessup Lane. You're here, okay, good. The applicant seeks variances from 19729 1A for a proposed second-story addition, which is an increase in floor area within a required front yard. 45 is existing, 50 is required, a rear 35 existing, proposed 50 required, and side yard 19.9 existing, proposed 30 required, representing prohibited increase in degree of nonconformity of a dwelling with a pre-existing nonconforming substandard front, rear, and side yard. Good
Hi,
evening.
Good evening. My name's Adam DeLumen. I'm the architect on the project. Gina couldn't make it here. She's the expediter, having a procedure done. So basically, I'm here to just explain what happened from last time till now. We made some significant changes in the overall scale of the project. As you can see, the drawings were submitted, and there's a little chart on the front basically showing what the reductions were that we're proposing for this. The biggest, from the 3 variances that are being requested, it looks like we're possibly eliminating 2 of them. The only one that we're looking really for relief is the 45-foot existing front yard setback. We're existing 45 feet. We're just looking to put the second floor addition in line with the first floor wall. So 50 is required. We're asking for 45. The rear yard, we went from a 35-foot request. This is a weird number, but we went down to 49-foot 10. It's 2 inches off the required, and that's just due to pretty much a hardship on the structure that's there below. I know we could probably get rid of the 2 inches to comply with the 50-foot required.
So you're gonna get rid of the 2 inches?
We're gonna get rid of the 2 inches now that I see the 2 numbers there. So that, we're gonna eliminate the rear yard
Very good.
setback. The side yards have been eliminated. We're proposing to move the addition to the center of the house, so there will be no required, no request for variances on side yards. We will comply in that area too. Yeah, so like the only variance that we're gonna be requesting is the 45-foot front yard.
Which is already existing.
This is already existing,
Correct.
pre-existing non-conforming.
Right, so I see what you did with this. We had neighbors that were concerned about the
Yes.
height of the structure overlooking their property. So
Right.
you had moved that, is it my understanding it correctly, that you moved the addition out to more of the center of the house?
Correct. We moved the center, moved it to the center, removed all windows from the 3 sides, which would be the side, the rear, and the opposite side. So all the windows are in the front.
All the windows that would have been overlooking the neighbors have been
Correct.
eliminated?
They're all moved to the
Eliminated
front of the
windows?
house.
Really?
There's one in a walk-in closet, which is an oval window just for aesthetics. The bathroom window is also an oval window to match the other side. They're 2 foot by 3 foot. This is also facing the front. And then we just have a triple double hung window in the front. The plate heights in the center of the addition are 8 feet, which is, pretty modest. We went even beyond that for the bathroom and the walk-in closets on each side. We went down to a 7-foot plate height to keep that roof even lower. So from the proposed that we did in April, we're looking at a difference of almost 3'8" in height for the proposed to the, we also changed the pitch from an 11 pitch down to a 6 pitch on the sides. The last proposal from April, or that we submitted since April, we did have a walkout deck on the second floor, which is eliminated. Garage roof is gonna stay the same. No addition being proposed, other than the bathroom, but that's about a little bit less than a quarter of the garage. So we did make some significant changes on here. I think this is as modest as we can actually go. You know, we're only looking at, we did decrease the square footage of the second floor from 721 square feet to 618 square feet. So it's a difference of 103 square feet smaller than proposed.
So it seems like with the changes you made were pretty receptive to the neighbors' input.
Okay,
Because this house, if I'm correct on this is the only house on that block that's raised.
correct. It's been raised, I'm not,
It's raised to FEMA compliance.
raised to FEMA compliant, and also the septic system has been upgraded to the IA
It
system.
has, okay.
So, yeah, it's just, you know, we're going from,
You know what I want you to do right now?
Three
is
bedrooms
go
to four.
back, tell me exactly what you need as far as a variance that you require.
yes, that's what I said. I noticed that on here. I thought that was already done. So we'll revise the request.
Good. Can you
And then-
tell me what it is? Go through it with me right now. What are you looking
Oh,
for?
right now? So right now, the only variance we are looking for is a 45-foot front yard setback relief. It's pre-existing non-conforming, where, you know, 50 is required. The rear yard is gonna be eliminated. We're gonna be at the 50 feet requirement. And then the side yards will be also complied with the, I believe that's 70 feet total and 30-foot
30
minimum.
and 70s. You're gonna be complying with
Will
that
be,
too?
yeah, well,
With
the
the-
one side will be 30 feet, 4 inches, and the other side will be 46
Okay.
feet. That's a 5'3" difference.
All right. Boy, do you have, gentlemen, any questions? Anybody have any input on this application? I guess that's a yes.
My name is Josh Porter.
Come on over there, Mr. Porter, and speak into the microphone
I
for
live
us.
at 15 Jessup Lane. My name's Josh Porter. When I was here last time, of the 4 houses in our little neighborhood, mine's affected the least by this because I'm northeast of this house. But we asked that they take a look at mitigating it so it's the least harmful to the community or at least affecting the community. I think they did that in good faith. So to the extent I was going to take a position, I don't take a position. I support what people are willing to do are able to do with their own property. And so I guess I support this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Brad,
So we need an updated plot plan, because the architect can do based off of Wake's survey, but this board typically need a plot plan.
I could get that over here tomorrow.
okay?
It's up to the zoning, if you,
Look, it's up to you guys if you want to close it before you have a plot plan that shows the variances he's saying he can reach. The issue becomes if for some reason you get a survey or a plot plan and it doesn't match up with what your expectations are, the hearing's closed. So,
If the hearing is closed based on what he's saying, he's got to give us a plot plan based on that.
I guess so, but, you know, usually you have a plot plan to look at. There are
So you're
times where you,
suggesting that we
there,
hold it over?
I'm just saying, there are times where you will allow the hearing to be closed, subject to getting, but it's usually something very simple where, you know, your survey has a shed on it, it's proposed to be removed, show it as being removed, something simple. It's up to you guys to decide whether this is simple enough, where you're comfortable closing the hearing, subject to receipt of the amended survey or the amended architect site plan.
Let me ask a question. How would, a 30-day delay, how would that impact you? As far as the decision goes?
I think as long as the decision's made, I don't think that that's, unreasonable, 30 days.
Okay.
So what he's asking is, if
Construction-wise.
this was
I'm talking
held
about.
over for another 30 days, how would that impact your,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the client's not looking to do anything till the fall, after the season's done, so.
so that's the safer way to deal with this would be to just hold it over subject to receipt of.
Okay.
You could let the, maybe talk about that condition that we put on for some of the neighbors who are here, that there's no exterior work allowed in July and August.
Well, no, that, of course.
Variances, so it's not really,
Okay.
I don't think it changed their timeframe.
No. All right, so we're gonna hold it, we'll make a motion, hold it over
Okay.
upon receipt, okay? And then we'll have a decision after that for you.
Sure, so I'll come back next month and,
You
I
don't
don't
have to
think
come back, you
Okay.
just, if you get the survey in or the
yeah, I'll
plot
get that
plan,
in.
and you just indicate you have no further comments or changes, you don't necessarily have to come.
Okay,
All right.
good. I'll make a motion, we hold this over pending the receipt.
Second.
Second by Jim, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
All right. Are we up to this meeting? This Main Street one's not going through, right? Good, number 6 has been held over. We don't have to, it's been held over, we don't even have to talk about that, right?
Kitchen,
Huh?
it's held over.
Yeah, well, we're waiting for input from planning on that one. All right, into the new applications, number 8, Catherine Albert and Enzo Morbido, 110 Beach Road. Applicant seeks variances from 197-7D for a one-story addition with a proposed front yard setback of 33 feet where the minimum required is 50 feet, and from 197-35C1 for a proposed residential storage shed with a setback of 5 feet where the minimum required is 10 feet. And Mr. Young.
Good evening. For the applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach. As the chairman read, we're here for a couple of variances. One, well, first of all, the property is located at 110 Beach Road, and it's owned by Enzo and his wife Catherine, who are here in the front road. It's a 100 by 240 lot, so it's on the long and narrow as opposed to the wide and not narrow. Right now, there's a house, a patio, and a pool on the property. My clients are looking to install a small addition to the front of the house, which will require a front yard setback variance, and they are looking to install a shed in the backyard, which will require a 5-foot variance. My client, in addition to his day job, you may be surprised to know, is an artist and does painting and sculpting and other forms of fine art, and so is looking for a place to practice that craft in his home. His first stop was to look at perhaps some kind of a pool house, but the pool house, he needs water in this facility, and a pool house at 200 square feet didn't seem sufficient to meet the needs of his avocation. Really no other place to put this addition except on the front of the house. It's off the front, which already extends out from the front of the house. It's about 525 square feet. It's about 20 feet wide, so it's only, the setback is only for the 20 out of the 100 foot width of the property. And as I said, this seemed to be the only place that a structure of that size, of the necessary size, could be placed. As to the shed, it's, kind of tucked in the back corner by the side yard, and they're just looking to
the
not
shed
have it
was
loom
gone.
over the, pardon?
We're not gonna need a variance for the shed. We moved it back.
Oh, there we go.
Right.
You saw
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
I
You
did
stole
see-
my thunder. I was gonna magnanimously give that back.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how this works.
Yes.
I did see that. and
Oh, okay. So we're not looking for the shed. We're just
All we're
looking
looking for is the front yard.
the front yard, yes. That's it.
So the relocated shed isn't reflected on this survey?
It is not.
What had happened was I made 3 different designs for a shed in the back. And, you know, I drew them. I didn't actually go out to the backyard and stake them. And when I staked the 5 foot and I staked the fire pit, everything was a little too crowded. So I'm like, you know, let's just make it smaller and compliant and move on. And it looks great. I mean, I like it.
Yeah, okay. So all we're talking about is the front yard addition tonight.
Jim, can you describe the challenges of putting this in a more conforming location in the front and in the rear as a separate building, just as the argument was?
Sure. Well, the reason why it doesn't work as a separate building in the back is that because it needs plumbing. And since it needs plumbing, it can't be any greater than 200 square feet.
Okay.
So that was actually the first thought, but that didn't work. And then if you look around the property, it can't really go in the side yards because we would require a side yard variance. And it needs to be a relatively rectangular space for it to make sense work-wise. And so it landed in the front where it is. And that works very nicely with the rest of the existing house, the layout of the house, access to the space, and those kinds of things.
Okay.
So that's how it ended up there.
Are there any other homes in that neighborhood with front yard setback variances?
It does not appear to be the case, no. We would be set forward. However, if you've been there, you'll see on the north side, there's already significant landscaping that comes almost all the way out to the road. And I'm sure if one of the conditions of the approval here was some kind of landscape screening on the south side of the property, I'm sure the clients would be more than happy to accommodate that as well. It's a huge rhododendron, I think, on the north. But very
I
pretty.
don't have anything else. Anybody, you guys want to have any, Brad?
May I speak?
Of course you may.
Good evening, my name is John Neely. I live at 108 Beach Road. I'm a neighbor of the applicants. Full disclosure, I consider them friends. They've been very kind to me and my wife over the years, and I am here to support their application. I see in no way that affecting my house, and if anything, it'll probably make my house more valuable. So, any questions?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to see what these meetings were like again.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
I have nothing further, so.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I'd like to make a motion. We close this hearing for decision. Second by John, all in favor?
Aye.
You good? Okay,
you very
thank
much.
you. Thank you, Jim. All right. All righty. Number 9, 161 Montauk Highway LLC.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Enzo? That's fine. I don't need it.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.
All righty, 161 Montauk Highway LLC. Applicant seeks a variance from 19741C for proposed apartments, which have proposed 1320 and 926 square feet of habitable space, where the maximum permitted is 850 square feet.
Good evening, Nicholas Vera, architect, 120 Mill Road for the applicant. As chairperson has stated, we're here before you to ask for a variance to allow us to construct over a proposed building that's before the planning board and the health department right now. Construct two larger apartments than is permitted by code. And the reason why Mr. Stinchey is looking to do this is to take the opportunity, first of all, the design of the building, is to make the apartments a little more desirable because they are on Montauk Highway. As you may or may not know, Mr. Stinchey does own several buildings that house apartments, and he's always asked by some of his clients if there are any larger apartments available, any larger two-bedroom apartments available, to which he tells them, no, there aren't. So this is strictly an ask for larger apartments to make them more desirable to people who would like to live in the area that can't afford the condominiums across the street and down the road and further down the road also. By increasing the size of these two apartments, it does not intensify the use. It's two-bedroom apartments, still 2 parking spaces required for each one. We're before the planning board right now, waiting for our health department approval to come back. So again, just to reiterate, it does not intensify the use. It really is not going to change the character of the neighborhood. I did speak to one person who lives behind us, she might have wrote a letter, not, in favor or not in favor. I think she was okay with it, but I haven't seen anything else come across my board at this point. And just to, again, to reiterate, it's not going to
Nick, where'd you
intensify.
get these numbers from?
Basically, they,
You're 155% on 1320. I mean, that's, you got 1320 and 926. Where's that coming from?
it came from the architecture, the style of the architecture of the building. So we're underneath a roof line.
Not built yet, right?
Not built
No,
yet,
it's a
absolutely not
vacant
built
lot,
yet.
right? Yeah.
It's a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Clean slate.
Okay.
Okay, but again, it's just a desire for a larger apartment to give us a little more ample space. Instead of having 10 by 12 bedrooms, they can be, 12 by 14 bedrooms, good size. And I think as Diane Harrell had said before, most people today desire to have queen beds in their apartments. Yes, I get it. It is a very large increase.
Right.
But,
It is
you
a
know,
large, a very large increase.
Right.
For something that's not built yet. I just, I'm not seeing the rationale for it.
Again, the rationale is only desirability.
We want more.
Well, I don't know if we want more, but again, if you want Marcus to, explain the rationale behind making it a larger apartment, because he does own, a few buildings that have apartments in them,
I own one too. I have two 650 square foot apartments,
okay? One bedrooms or studios?
one bedrooms.
One bedroom. So
Yeah.
this room is 900 square feet. Okay? 900 square feet for 2 bedrooms, a little tight. 900 square feet for 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom, yes, perhaps. So we're looking to do one 1-bedroom apartment, one 2-bedroom apartment with a little bit more elbow room. That's what the application is.
So the 900 square foot is a one bedroom.
That's a 1-bedroom. That's correct.
It's a nice size for one bedroom.
It's a nice size.
Yeah, it's a nice size for one bedroom.
You want to be able to track somebody who, to come into an apartment on Montauk Highway when you can have Cinderella's next door, that's going to be opening. You have the wine store on the other side of you, so not the most desirable location, but perhaps, a little larger apartment can attract someone who would want to live there. That's the rationale.
Okay, I'm
That's
not
the,
seeing the rationale for the roof. You understand?
yeah, I do understand. So if we're,
You're only allowed to have 2 apartments there too.
That's
That
correct.
was the other thing.
that's
right?
correct. We're allowed to have 2 apartments there.
Right.
So, we have a footprint of a building, of a first-floor building. The opportunity to do apartments above. And again, the rationale is if we can make the apartments a little bit bigger, to make them more desirable, to attract.
Explain to me why one is 400 square feet more than the other one.
Because one's a 1-bedroom
300,
apartment.
Huh?
One's a 1-bedroom apartment, the other's a
The other one's
2-bedroom.
two-bedroom
Right.
apartment.
Right, because that wing of that building, the east side, the west side wing of that building only allows for that size building with the way the roof line is designed. And again, we're not looking at, from the road, you're not looking at a full 2-story structure. You're looking for an apartment that's gonna fit into an A-frame on both sides. And there's just a little jut out on the east wing, towards the rear of the property, towards the south side. So there's no change in the character to what was designed on the building, as you can see. I see Jim looking at the elevations right now. So again, no change in character what's proposed. And if it's a 200 square foot apartment, it's not gonna change the look of that building, nor is it gonna change the use or the intensity of, it's still 2 parking spots, it's still the same design flow for sanitary system. Anything over 600 square feet puts us into 150 gallons per day with sanitary anyway, so it's not increasing the intensity and the use of that property. All it is just making the apartments larger and more desirable. That's it.
Nick, why don't you go over the 5 factors, so it's, you know, a little clearer here.
Sure, okay. Well, I just explained that it's not gonna change the character of the neighborhood. The building as designed, which is also before planning board, is the building that we designed. So the look of that building is gonna stay the same. Like I said, the back side of the building is where you would see the two-story aspect of, so whether it's 850 square feet or 1,200 square feet, it's gonna have the same look on the back side of the building. It's just a matter of how we're going to finagle and redesign the floor plan. So that's not going to change. Character won't change. I'm gonna go down to step number 5. As I always say, no matter when we're here before the board, it's self-created. So there's no getting around the the fact that it's not self-created. Every variance is self-created. It's what the applicant is seeking.
Except if you're an attorney.
But I'm not. So I
To
admit.
clarify, Nick, we approved the Quantuck Beach Club, and they predate zoning, so their
Okay.
variance was
I
not
apologize. Okay.
self-created.
That's right.
Once in a while,
Yes, that's right. Okay.
once in a long
Thank you for
while,
that. Okay, I'm gonna always remember that.
have an
once I-
applicant who predates zoning.
Okay, all right. So obviously, we don't predate zoning, and we do have a clean slate. And again,
That may be the first, though.
there's gotta be more, though, no?
Maybe.
But, I think I'm the only one who admits that it is all self-created. So, like I said, whether we're looking to do it 850 square feet or not, or less, it's going to be the same application before the planning board and before health department. It doesn't change the intensity. So it's a self-created hardship, and again, it boils down to desirability and making something a little bit more attractive if you want to attract somebody on Montauk Highway. Maybe you want to give them a little more elbow room, okay? As far as the benefit to the community and the benefit to the applicant, again, this would benefit the applicant. I think the community would also benefit from this because it's going to attract, someone who's gonna wanna live on Montauk Highway. And again, you may get someone who can't afford units down the street, wanna stay in West Hampton Beach, and can afford an apartment with a little bit more elbow room, so to speak. And that's what we're looking for, a little more elbow room, in this space. Gotta get to the other two, Joe, I'm sorry. I'll get there. Substantial. Again, it has, the chair, Mr. Peering has stated, it is substantial. So we're going from an increase of 850 to almost 1,300 square feet. It is substantial, but again, it's substantial only in the nature that we're looking to make it desirable for someone who want to live and rent in this community and have a little bit more larger space than what we're getting in some of the smaller apartments that are available to anybody, including your own, including whatever I could do above my building too. I mean, I got 550 square feet of apartment that I could put there, and I haven't done it yet because maybe I don't want to put an apartment, above my building. I know we did across the street at Chuck Ochika's office building. He has a 1-story above there, and he has a very tiny kitchen in there, and there's a woman who lives in there with her daughter, single woman with her daughter, and it's a 1-bedroom, and plus, they do a pull-out bed, I guess, for the daughter to sleep. Very nice apartment, very well appointed, but it's a small apartment. And the last one, Joe, I'm sorry, this is before I get to the page.
Environmental.
I'm sorry? The environment. Doesn't, like I said, whether it's 600 square feet or 1,200 square feet or 1,500, it's the same design flow. So it's not increasing, again, the intensity of what's required by the health department on this piece of property. The only way to decrease that is eliminate the apartment's entirety or change whatever we're doing for the commercial building in the aspect too. New septic system, obviously it's an IA system for commercial use, pretty much similar to what they're doing over at Citarelli's next door.
Well, I would have to think that there's a reason why 850 square feet is the limit.
And I don't know what that is. I don't, again, I spoke to Mr. Hammond about it. It is a number.
Brad, let me ask Brad.
So that went into our code at the same time the accessory apartments went into our code, which
Right.
is many codes along in Suffolk County. Some towns and villages adopted an 800 square foot max, some did a 900 square foot max, some did 1,000 square. It's just kind of in that realm of not wanting the accessory apartments to overtake the principal uses, and I think that was a number that was probably recommended at the time. This goes back to the previous residential zoning update, which is 2005, I want to say.
2005,
So it's been some time. And I really, because they were adopted the same exact time, I think they just mirrored that, hey, we could do accessory apartments. We might have a housing issue. Also, you can have up to 2 dwelling units over commercial properties, max of 2, no matter how many buildings you have. They just took that same 850 number, the same 2-bedroom limit, and I think that's really where it came from. So,
Gotcha.
Right, so like I said, moving the walls in, making this space smaller to conform to the, to the code is not going to change the look of the building, with the exception possibly on the south side if we're reducing that 2-story space somewhat, so. And again, I just have to reiterate that it's not intensifying the use of this property for what we're allowed to do in this piece of property. Still the same 2 cars that need to be parked there for each apartment. We don't need 3, we don't need 4, because we have a little more square footage. They may be able to get a little bit bigger dining room table, they maybe get, able to get a bigger, full-size, television, bigger than that one. Again, that was the thinking that Mr. Stinchi came up with. Little larger apartment, more desirability for someone to come around.
Anything else, guys?
It just puts us in a tough spot, because, what happens is, we have these numbers that we have to work with, right? And the argument, on the applicant side is that we need something larger to offer. As more applications come in, whether they're Montauk Highway, whether they're Riverhead Road, whether on Main Street, that's, that'll be the new standard. It would be the new argument, okay, well, because we want to offer something a little bit larger, for our clients. That's the bind that we get in.
Understood.
Now, the other part is, we always try to minimize, whatever variances, come across. Is there a possibility of minimizing the square footage on that second apartment?
I think we can minimize the square footage in the second apartment, absolutely. I think we can bring it down to a little bit reasonable. I mean, if you look at the floor plan, I think you have floor plans in front of you. I mean, you can see it seems to be a modest sized looking apartment. 2 bedrooms on each side, 2 bathrooms for each. Perhaps we can squeeze it down somewhat if the board, that's a way of getting this to the end, getting us to the finish line.
I mean, it's kind of,
Possibility.
yeah,
I mean,
you're all over the place.
Mr. Stinchi is here, and he can speak for himself. He's also, so he's also a neighbor on 2 sides of this piece of property, too, so I'm sure.
And I don't object. So I'm speaking as a neighbor on both sides of the property, and I happen to really like this application. So where we started was, and this doesn't really have anything to do with zoning, but just so you understand where the application came from. I didn't want a block building. I wanted to build a building with some character that kind of blended in with the wine shop that I own next door. I didn't want like a True Value looking building that was just a big building that, I could rent to a medical facility and make a lot of money. I live here. I grew up on Humphrey behind, which I still own the house where my mother resided for 50 plus years and sat on this board. And, I want to build something nice. That said, we backed into this, and now we have all this space upstairs, and it's on Montauk Highway. So, to make it a little more desirable, to have a little bit of a larger space would be nice. Again, I could have built a bigger building, and I know that doesn't have anything to do with this application, but it does have to do with the aesthetics and the benefit to the community, and building a nicer building, and providing, a nice place for somebody who's local to live. I'm not looking to do a summer rental, and I don't do summer rentals on any of my properties. And I'm happy to show you my rent rolls of all my other properties, and they're way below market. Morgan House, where I've done a lot of work, and those rents are, we're at $2,000, $2,200. Some of them are lower. You know, it's way below market. You know, I'm not doing it for pure financial gain. I'm doing it to, you know, try to make something that's nice for somebody that says, well, I'm on Montauk Highway, but, you know, listen, I got a nice apartment. We have a little patio on each one of them, and I always try to give some outside space, which is nice. So, you know, that said, you know, could we close up the one and get it down to 850 and, you know, we don't need a variance on that? I mean, sure, we could, you know, I mean, it's the way it's designed, it's a nice space, but from a board perspective, I can understand your position. If we got down to 850 on the one and 12 on the other, I mean, is that something that's?
I mean, those are very reasonably sized apartments for a 1 and 2 bedroom. I mean, you compare that to what most New York City apartments are, you know, 670 would be an average 1 bedroom in this.
Right, but we're not New York City, and
No, I know.
people want a little space, and, you know, Morgan House, some of them are 600 and 650, and
Yeah.
they're small.
No, that's what I'm
you
saying,
know, I mean,
850 is
and
nice.
people, you know, I don't know, you know, it's small. You know, I lived in a small apartment on Main Street for 7 years, you know, it was a small 1 bedroom, and that's mostly what you have around. You know, perhaps it's not for this board, but perhaps the trustees should look into increasing, you know.
Well, that's always an
1,000,
option that you
1,200.
have, Marcus. You know, that's always an option that you have,
Yeah.
is to go to them, because this puts us in a tough spot, as Joe was saying, you know, I mean, this, you know, to go up to what, 1320 from 850 is a huge,
Yeah, I mean, anything less than 1,200, I mean, I'm not gonna get a 2-bedroom, you know.
understandable, but it puts us in a tough spot where, you know, you might make a good argument, but you don't. You know what I'm saying? You know, follow me? It's how are we gonna grant that, and then, you know, when somebody else comes up with their garage and they want to, you know, do something for 1,300 square feet?
Well, you know, again, you know, I don't know what the intent of the code was. If I had to assume, it would be that it was an accessory apartment in a residential area, not on Montauk Highway, you know? You know, looking around Montauk Highway, I don't know how many apartments there are above new buildings, or buildings at all, or on Riverhead Road, you know? A couple here and there maybe, but.
If you guys are gonna make an argument that the Montauk Highway distinguishes it a little bit, you might think about coming in with some evidence that it's kind of necessary from a dollars and cents point of view, because otherwise.
Well, that's
Hold on,
exactly
hold on.
what we're
Otherwise,
saying.
since it's new construction, anybody could come in and say, but you gave them X, we get X too. Because this board struggled with one when Barry came in.
That's what.
But he had a pre-existing envelope, and you dealt with that, and there were arguments, you know, about trying to utilize the existing space. Your argument was, this space already exists, so that's why we want to use it, right? You're coming in with something brand new, so you can make it whatever you want. If your argument's gonna be Montauk Highway, then come in with something, maybe from a broker or from an appraiser
You know, we
saying,
could build the building and then come back to you and say, well, here's the space. I mean, we're coming to you now because we're building the building. You know, I
you're
mean,
not,
I
I'm trying
don't
to give you
know
a
that that's a good argument.
Marcus, I'm trying to give you a suggestion. You gotta, like, listen to the suggestion.
Well,
okay?
that's exactly what we're saying. It's Montauk Highway. I mean,
But
that's
you're
what Nick-
saying
That's
it-
what Nick said, and that's
You're
what.
saying it not, that's not evidence, that's.
So you're looking for something substantial that you can look and say, okay, well, I understand what you're saying, but also hearing that, you know, the possibility of making the 1 bedroom a little bit smaller, bringing down the 2 bedroom a little bit smaller too.
Yes.
And again, you know, I think that, in my own case, I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, obviously, every application has its own merit, okay? And you look at all the applications differently than you know, look at the last application. However, if a precedent is set, I understand the position that the board is in, will be in, and is always kind of in. Every time you make a decision, you know, somebody's gonna say, well, we did this at 139 Montauk Highway, or Dune Road, why can't I do it at 121 Dune Road? It's the same, you know, you gave them 3 feet, give me 3 feet too. I understand that, and that's what happens. Because we always compare apples to apples when we're presenting things to the
Well,
board.
that's half true, you know, you know, to Tony's, you know, comment, it's gotta be, it's all about the argument also. It's not just, okay, well, you gave it to him, I want the same
No,
thing.
no, I'm not
So
saying
that's
that.
why he's trying to help out, okay, just, at Montauk Highway, this is not, not Beach Lane. That's what.
I'm agreeing with that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying no, I'm understanding what Tony is asking for. Tony's asking for something. that's a
suggesting.
suggesting.
Not asking, I'm
He's
suggesting.
suggesting, right, I
Guiding
apologize.
you on
Yes.
how we
Right,
can make,
right. What,
help
right,
you.
right.
I'm suggesting
helping you.
Absolutely,
how to
I
make
get
the
it. Right.
argument
Okay.
Okay.
that I think you're trying to make, but you can make it a little bit more stronger
Right.
if you
By-
came in with something.
Yes, I got you. Okay.
Which
Do you
could then
understand?
become,
Good.
Okay,
then could become a distinction for the next application who says, but you gave it to them.
Right.
And we want it now down on Main Street,
Right.
the exact same thing. It's a different animal. It's not.
yeah, well, no,
That's the point.
But you want to be able to substantiate why this be more valuable with a larger apartment, and I think they're looking for some kind of an idea of, I got it.
Or why a
I
conforming,
got it.
I'll say it this way, why would a conforming apartment be more difficult to rent here as opposed to somewhere else?
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay?
And- Okay,
Because it's a second floor in a commercial area on Montauk Highway.
right, exactly, right.
So-
right.
You want to hold it over and do a little bit more research?
Sure.
Absolutely. We have a little time anyway, so.
Huh?
Yes,
You do?
yes.
Okay, so we'll,
Now, you have your special exemption permit already on this, or?
Not yet. We're waiting for some other things to fall into place, especially health department stuff. Because it's a Pine Barren credit thing, so. Okay? Brad's looking at me like he wants to say something.
I'm not on the board, so we're good. We'll move along.
okay?
You got it. Okay? I don't know.
What would we need special exemption for?
That's not before us.
It's not before us.
That's
I'm
before
just
us.
asking.
Oh.
I don't remember.
No, it's all conforming.
Yeah, it's all conforming.
We don't have
It's not conforming.
Okay.
Other than coming before this board for non-conforming.
Do you want to come back with this? Dick?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so
I would
let's-
like, to hold it over, please.
Good, let's make a motion, to hold this over for all purposes. Second by Jimmy, all in favor?
Thank you.
You'll be here by yourself. It's not in Italy, I think. No, maybe not. All right, I'll stay for my next one.
Once you're done with the variance, it is a special exception, Joe's right. Apartments over dwelling.
Yeah, that's, okay, that's right. Joe, thank you. I'm sorry for the.
Are you doing the last one too, Nick?
Yes, sir.
Right, this is yours, right?
You want me to
Wendy
just?
Barron, 190 Dune Road. Applicant seeks variances 197-29-1 for proposed two-story addition that represents a prohibited increase in gross floor area within a required setback of a dwelling with pre-existing non-conforming side yard, 14.7 feet, existing proposed with 20 feet is required, and for 197-35C for proposed accessory deck setback of 14.7 feet, where the minimum required is 20 feet.
With Vera Architect for Wendy Barron at, what's her address again? I apologize. 190 Dune Road.
190 Dune Road.
Yes. As the chairperson has stated, we're here before you to seek a variance to extend second floor addition out of approximately 9 feet, I believe, 9 feet 6 inches, to allow for a reconfiguration of their main bedroom on the second floor, give them a little more sitting space up in the bedroom on the second floor, along with larger closets and a larger main bathroom. We're also asking for permission to extend out our deck on the back of the house to the north 4 feet. If you took a look at my site plan, you would see that we're very limited to what we can do in this piece of property because of extensive wetlands that are on the property. Both pieces of property on both the east and the west side have the benefit of bulkheading. This property doesn't, so you can see how the wetlands crept in onto this piece of property. If the wetlands weren't there, existing where they are, we probably would have been able to come up with a different application where we wouldn't need any variances to allow us for this modest addition. So again, we're looking to extend the building out, not increasing the non-conforming side yard setbacks, both for the deck and the second floor addition. And it's just an allowing Wendy Barron and her husband to have a little bit more space on their deck too, because that's all they have. That's their living area right there that you see. Very, very tiny on the outside. I believe that deck is 9 feet right now by 20 feet. We're just asking to go for an additional 4 feet in the back, as well as the addition on the second floor. And that's the application.
That's an application,
It's one variant, well, it's two variances technically.
variances.
Again, property, you know, the
Very
two,
constrained property.
they're very constrained. And,
With
you know, the
with
two houses on
wetlands.
either side of us, to the
About
east or
that.
west, a little further towards the water, so it's really not impacting anybody on either side. You're certainly not gonna see this from the front of the property as you're driving down Dune Road. I don't even think you'll see it from Moneybog Bay, because its house is so set back, so. Questions? Joe, come on, you can have a question.
I'm tired.
Pays to go last.
This is pretty straightforward. Do you have any input on this, Brad?
They have a tiny kitchen, tiny living rooms.
Yeah, it's a small house. It's a, actually, it's a cool house, but, it's a little tight.
Yeah.
We're trying to modernize it, basically.
All right. Questions, guys, for Nick? No. All right, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. Yeah, I am. Okay. Thanks, Nick. I'm gonna make a
Glad it wasn't
motion.
me that wore you down tonight.
What's that? They wore you down, but, okay, I'll make a motion to go ahead and close this hearing for a decision.
Second.
Meeting, second by Joe. We're all in favor.
Aye.
That
Thank you,
concludes our
everybody.
business for tonight. I'll make a motion, we close tonight's hearing.
Second.
Second by Dan, all in favor? Aye. And we're out. Thank you, Michelle.